Look at this closely. This looks like someone's hand grabbing or holding on to something.
Hamilton talked about the Dulce facility, and I've also heard about, genetic engineering programs at Area 51.
Yeah, there's no question that Dulce exists. I was the one that kind of led the research on that.
I think we have found who brought the last reset.
I got some old dictionaries and looked for the word dinosaur. Even in 1891, the word was not in the dictionary. They called them dragons.
Get ready, because in today's video, we're diving into all types of mysterious and strange videos that people really can't explain. Hit that like and subscribe button as we dive through these videos and try to make sense of all this stuff.
Look at those spikes sticking out of their heads. Look at those strange little front legs and the sucker feet at the back. These are caterpillars from a cabbage tree emperor moth. And when you look closely at this guy, you would argue that truly is an alien. Look at those.
That has to be one of the scariest looking caterpillars I've ever seen. I don't know if it's a caterpillar or an actual Pokemon. Speaking of terrifying creatures, check this out.
Explaining the iceberg of cryptobotany, basically plant cryptids. First up, we got the Mandrake root. So this is one of the oldest, most famous mythical plants that was said to be extremely valuable for its medicinal properties. What's really weird about this thing is that this was a real plant that had a weird human body looking root shape. And so because of this, there was a legend that if you got too close to it whenever you pulled it out of the ground, this root that looked like a human would emit a crazy, deadly scream that could kill you or drive you insane. And there's even some historical accounts of this legend from the 10th century where they describe techniques where you should use a dog and tie it around the root and get it really hungry and then throw food in one direction and let the dog pull the root out so it doesn't hurt you. Kudzu.
Dang, that was very specific, like they was doing it before.
Folklore. So kudzu, is the vine that ate the South. It is this really invasive vine that grows really, really fast, like a foot a day, and can completely consume entire forests or houses. But there is this superstition about this vine, about how if you leave your window open at night in your bedroom, the vine might creep in and strangle you in your sleep. And I remember whenever I was younger, I read a book about kudzu, and it was a myth about how it could grab you if you were walking through it and
like Jumanji?
hold you and pull you in, but obviously that's not true. Death flower of Sumatra. So this plant is said to suffocate or poison people that get too close to it, according to the legend. Explorers that first found this thing described the smell as overwhelming and corpse-like, which contributed to its deadly reputation. Of course, this legend is linked to a real-life plant called Rafflesia arnoldii, which is a very famous plant for being extremely rare and producing the world's largest flower that smells like rotting stuff. Next up, we got carnivorous seaweed. So
that's another Pokemon, by the way. I think it's like Vileplume or something like that. They're saying this is the rarest plant. I actually saw a video of someone actually finding one, like a herbologist, and it was his first time finding one. He broke down and cried.
This flower that smells like rotting stuff. Next up, we got carnivorous seaweed. So stories about carnivorous seaweed have been very popular throughout sailing folklore and that sort of thing, specifically in the Sargasso Sea region, which is this really weird area in the sea that's like a place in the middle of the ocean that's 3 to 6 foot higher than the surrounding water, which is really weird in general. This area in the ocean is famous for these massive amounts of sargassum seaweed, which is this dense brown plant. And so because this is here and because a lot of boats go missing in this area, stories have emerged of these encounters with this dense seaweed that could entangle sailors on boats and even pull them in and wipe out entire crews, as they actually have found empty ships floating around in this water and entire crews gone without a trace. Rock softening plant. So this was this legend that claims that there is this plant that does this chemical softening to stones.
I don't know about that. I think they had some type of solar technology to bend these stones, but let's hear it.
that can make them moldable like clay. It's often tied to the Incan culture because those people were extremely good at precisely fitting large stones, and so explorers kind of came about with this legend about how they would find these plants that could soften rock, and they'd even go on about how like birds would use them to burrow in the stone because it was softer because of the plant. Nicaragua vampire vine. So this thing is called by the natives as the devil's snare. It was reported back in 1890 about this vine that supposedly could drain the life liquid from anyone who touched its bark or thorns. This guy named Dr. Dunstan, who was a naturalist, claimed that animals were found dead nearby, pierced and drained by this plant. But he wasn't able to study this plant because it was so difficult to handle. And anyways, this plant was described as having these needle-like structures that functioned as syringes, and there was even an account written in a magazine about this, but obviously it was fake. The vegetable land of Tartary. So this was a really famous weird thing in medieval culture and such, about how there was this really weird plant that had this long stem that grew a living creature on it. Specifically, it was a lamb that was the fruit that this plant grew that was tethered by a stem, and that this lamb would walk around and graze on the vegetation around this plant until it would just starve because it can't keep moving. And medieval travelers and scholars actually treated this as a real organism that was out there, but it seems like they were just trying to explain cotton plants through a myth. Last one, we got the man-eating tree.
Hold on, we're not done. That lamb of Tartary, it goes way deeper. People described themselves eating it before. They were eating it, and we found an actual sample. I might have to show you guys that clip because it's absolutely insane. The vegetable, that lamb of Tartary, is crazy.
Of Madagascar. So this was this strange legend about this tree that could capture and consume humans with these tentacle-like leaves. The reason why this got popular was there was this newspaper in 1874 called the New York World that published this story as if it was a new discovery. This article included this gruesome description about this woman that was fed to this plant by members of her tribe in Madagascar, and it was supposed to be like a sacrifice, and the story goes on about how these people worship this tree, and to appease it they had to give it a person every so often. And later on they completely debunked this story, and this tree and also the tribe don't exist, but people actually did believe this story for decades. Explaining the iceberg of Cryptobotany.
According to Hopi tradition, the Grand Canyon isn't just a canyon, it's a portal, a gateway to the underworld. They call it Sipapuni, the place where the first people emerged after a great cataclysm. The Hopi believe that humanity was destroyed and reborn not once, but 3 times, each time saved by mysterious underground beings known as the Ant People. These Ant People weren't insects. They were described as small, pale-skinned humanoids with large eyes, who lived in vast subterranean cities beneath the earth. They sheltered the Hopi during times of fire and flood, fed them, and taught them survival, and possibly more. In some versions of the myth, the Sky People, described as gods who descended in flying shields, guided the Hopi to the Ant People and then returned to the stars.
Gods in flying shields? Sounds like flying saucers.
Sound familiar? In one Hopi account, the original people who emerged from the canyon were lizard-like, reptilian beings who transformed into human form. Other versions say that giants once ruled the region, only to be destroyed by divine wrath and buried beneath the stone. Modern researchers dismiss these tales as metaphor, but they line up uncannily with global stories. The Nagas of India, reptilian underworld dwellers with immense knowledge and power. The dragon kings of Chinese mythology, who ruled from crystal palaces beneath the earth. The watchers from the Book of Enoch, who descended from the sky and were later buried underground after corrupting mankind.
If they showed everyone they found a crystal castle underground, people would lose their minds. I know I would.
What if these aren't just metaphors? What if they're fragments of a real event, a global catastrophe, a migration underground, and the survival of a forgotten people? The Zuni speak of Kachinas, godlike beings who descended from the sky and brought knowledge, language, agriculture, and order to the people. But when their time was over, the Kachinas retreated into the earth, where they remain in vast underground chambers, hidden until the world is ready again. The Acoma Pueblo holds similar beliefs, of divine teachers who did not come from this land, but who shaped it, then vanished into sacred mountains and deep caverns to sleep. And in nearly every one of these traditions, the sacred lands are located around one specific place, the Grand Canyon. When early American archaeologists encountered these stories, they dismissed them as primitive folklore, not history, not real. But those same institutions believe the Iliad was inspired by a real war at Troy. They admit that Norse myths preserve details of actual weather events and migrations. So, why are native myths treated as imagination, when they may be eyewitness accounts passed down through time? According to Hopi tradition,
Interesting. It's crazy how all different cultures speak of like a wheel within a wheel, a flying shield, you know. What did they actually see in the sky? Look at this hatch on top of the Sphinx, guys.
A shaft, approximately 6 feet deep, exists at the top of the Sphinx's head. It has been hypothesized that this hole was most likely used to affix a headdress or crown. The hole was filled with cement in mid-1920s.
People thought these walls were once part of the Great Wall of China, but instead they ended up belonging to a 4,000-year-old city that is changing Chinese history. Welcome to episode 53 of Ancient Site Sunday. I'm Raven, an archaeologist, followed to never miss a weekly adventure. Today we're visiting the Neolithic fortress city of Shimao. Shimao is the largest known Neolithic settlement in China and dates to around 2200 BCE. The site spans around 400 hectares, and excavations at the site have so far uncovered over 6 miles of protective walls that were 8 feet thick, an inner sanctum decorated in painted murals, and a 230-foot high pyramid. This pyramid originally had 20 tiers and was built on a hill for defensive purposes. Fun fact, it's about half the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza and was built around the same time, but the one at Shimao has a base that is 4 times larger, and the elites of this settlement lived on the top tier, which had a 20-acre palatial complex on it with its own water reservoir, workshops, and probably ritual temples. Even Shimao's stone walls were impressive and had thousands of pieces of black and green jade wedged into them to ward off evil.
Wow, black and green jade. I bet you that was astonishing. You can kind of see a little bit of artwork there, but that kind of looks Aztec. Where'd they say this was this? I thought this was Chinese. That kind of looks Aztec, doesn't it?
Ward off evil. This amount of jade is crazy because the nearest source is over 1,000 miles away, meaning they would have had to have had a vast trading network in place to import such large quantities. Shimao also produced extraordinary stone carvings unlike anything previously found from this period in China. There are snakes, monsters, human faces, and other hybrid creatures decorating the walls and gateways that are amazingly innovative and unique. The defensive system, though, is what really keeps me up at night. There were gates flanked by towers, bastions, and even a structure that forced attackers into an area where the defenders could pummel them from 3 sides, which is a design that later became a staple of Chinese defensive architecture. One shocking discovery at the East Gate was evidence of human sacrifice, with 80 human skulls found over 6 pits. This was possibly done while the foundations of the walls were being constructed, and almost all of the victims were young girls and might have been prisoners from a rival group. All this really makes you wonder what exactly was going on 4,300 years ago that would have required this level of defense and sacrifice. Shimao was abandoned after 500 years, and we don't know exactly why as of yet, but it's thought that climate change probably played an important part. Nevertheless, as more comes out of the ground, we are no doubt going to be learning so much that will keep challenging our understanding of the earliest period of Chinese civilization.
Look at these faces over here. That one eye looking at you. Oh my goodness. What were they working on over in China, man?
Thousands of years. It stands in... This tower is older than the pyramids by thousands of years. It stands in Jericho, built around 8000 BC, the oldest known stone tower on Earth, 8.5 meters tall, conical, and hiding an internal staircase. No empire, no steel, just early humans building the impossible.
Head shields are the most famous family in the realm, but fame isn't power. 13 families hold it all. You only know one. Their names never appear in chronicles. Their faces never painted. Almost all are goblins. They make up 0.2% of the realm, yet own it almost entirely. Together, the 13 forged 4 great chains. The first chain controls all food. They poisoned the soil, made seeds that wither after one harvest. Now every harvest requires their blessing. The second chain controls all movement. They own the black goo. Every cart, ship, and forge requires it to move. They've started wars just to raise the price. The third chain controls all coin. They built eternal debt. Their private vaults print public coin. Kings borrow what goblins conjure from nothing and owe it back forever. The fourth chain controls all healing. They seized every cure, made sickness a subscription. Healing exists, but only for those who can pay forever. 4 chains, invisible to most, wrapped around everything. And the people believe they are free, because chains you cannot see are chains you cannot break. Head shields are the most famous family in the realm.
Those goblins. As Little Wayne always would say, what's a goon to a goblin? What you know about Dulce base?
We have both seen the film that was taken out of the Dulce facility. Why would somebody make pictures like this showing the creation of some sort of alien being? And this is a facility. This is a facility that's run by the United States government. I mean, with your tax money. Hamilton talked about the Dulce facility. I've also heard about, genetic engineering programs at Area 51.
Yeah, there's no question that Dulce exists. I was the one that kind of led the research on that. I was at a meeting in Crestone, Colorado, and Tom Adams handed me a letter from a lady who lives in Las Vegas, and she was the one that tipped us off that this thing existed. So I talked to her, and she knew the location of some photos and videotape that had been taken inside Dulce by a guard who escaped during what they call the Dulce Wars of 1979. He used to contact her every 6 months, and he said, if I ever miss contacts 2 in a row for a year, you can go after this box, which they had hidden somewhere here in Nevada, that contained 6 minutes of videotape, 25 black and white photos, and some other documentation about what went on in Dulce. About 2 years ago, he did turn up missing. We never heard from him. And I think there was like 12 or 13 attempts after the box, but it had been hidden maybe at least 10 years ago in the terrain and the foliage and everything changed. I don't think they ever got it out.
He said on level 5, he'd walk on by and people would be in cages and screaming and begging for help, and he's told to walk straight on through and not look or pay attention. Yeah. These people are all mad.
I heard that. And then from another source, Air Force engineering source, I heard that when he went there, they referred to it as Section D. And then Bob heard it referred to when he was up at the tip site just once, and somebody said, mentioned something about it being shipped to Dulce, but that's the only reference he ever heard to it.
Now, I call these, the guys who are working in the facility as Igors, the invisible government's obedient robotons. But it really is a Frankenstein factory.
We can't forget about my boy Rob, that he went down in the underground base and the Green Berets protected him. And the alien shot a green beam, and he tried to cover up from the green beam, and, he was stuck looking like this, What was his name? Rob Schneider or something like that?
Simplify. That is raw as shit, I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
That's too rare?
Oh, yeah, God, that's perfect.
I've never tried, bro. I gotta try, bro.
It's good. It's good.
Because I do like the medium on, the medium rare,
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Bro, stop lying. They gonna tip you. You ain't gotta eat. You ain't gotta tell them. He said, yeah, I tried the medium rare, bro. You ain't gotta lie. They still gonna tip you, bro. They said that cow was still mooing. You couldn't pay me to take a bite of that raw steak. I need my stuff at least medium well. I know y'all, Chuck, that ain't how you eat a steak. You gotta have that thing medium. No, I don't want it. I want mine's medium well.
I think we have found who brought the last reset.
He said what was really happening back then. This shit looked like Star Wars. I think we have found what brought the last reset. This video is from the Vatican, hidden from us all. However, the truth must be revealed and always come to the light. Pyramids, as you see here. Step pyramid of royalty. Star Wars. It was a battle going on. No, this is not Star Trek from Hollywood. This is the real deal. And it's spectacular, as we all see here. It's amazing, the technology that we had back then. And our ancestors was letting us know that we had all this advanced technology through their showings on walls throughout the world. We just have to have our eye wide open 24/7, 365, American Indians.
And keep your head on a straight swivel.
Because we are the people, the high-tech trendsetters of the entire world. And let it be known worldwide. I'm Newbie One.
There was an Anunnaki war, you know, if the angels created, the fallen angels created the Anunnaki, you know, they had heavenly knowledge. So how far-fetched was it to think that they would be able to craft some type of flying machines, you know, the solar technology that might have melted all these ancient structures? Honestly, how far-fetched would it be? It's that time of the day again. If you thought I wasn't going to hit you with another excellent specimen of the day today, think again. Hayusin! Do you see it? Oh, there's more than one, but they look like they're part of the same pocket, if you will. You know, when they find these, it's all in a pocket somewhere. But these are definitely extraordinary. I don't even know what to call these. Look at how they dazzle. I know what I'm gonna call it. If I had to rate one of these, I would say that one, or that one, or that one. If I had to rate one of these, the best one out of all of them, I like that one too. I would have to call it. No, the rating I would give this is I'll give this a 9.5. This is up there, guys. And the name I would give this is Space Coral. I will call this Space Coral. What would you name it? And give me a rating down below in the comments.
How to send telepathic messages that actually work. The CIA spent $20 million on a classified program, Project Stargate, 1972 to 1995. They trained operatives to send thoughts across continents. Success rate, 68% verified hits. Then they shut it down. But the techniques leaked, and neuroscientists discovered why it works. Human brains operate on electromagnetic frequencies, and those frequencies can be transmitted. It's called Intentional Resonance Protocol, and you can use it in the next 3 minutes. Princeton University, 2004, Global Consciousness Project. They proved when multiple people focus on the same thought, random number generators worldwide stop being random. Translation: focused intention creates measurable disturbances in the field. Your thoughts aren't trapped in your skull, they're broadcasting. Here's the exact protocol. Step 1. Choose your exact message. Not vague, laser specific. Call me today at 3 p.m. Think about our conversation. Precision equals power. Step 2. Enter the theta state. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Count backwards from 100 to 1. This drops you into 4 to 7 hertz brainwaves, the frequency where telepathy activates. Step 3. Visualize their face in perfect detail, not their body, their eyes. Lock onto them like a target. Step 4. Send the message in a loop. Repeat your exact phrase mentally, 15 times minimum. Feel it leaving your mind, traveling through space, entering theirs. Step 5. Release completely. Cut the connection instantly. Don't obsess. Don't check your phone. Attachment blocks transmission. What happens next? Within 6 to 72 hours, they contact you. They bring up the exact topic. They do what you transmitted. And they'll say, I don't know why, but I was thinking about you. Why does this work? Because consciousness isn't local. Quantum physics proved particles communicate instantly across infinite distance. Your brain? Same principle. But here's the critical rule. Only send messages aligned with free will. Trying to control someone? It backfires violently. Inviting connection? It flows effortlessly. Test this tonight. Theta state, their eyes. Specific message. 15 loops. Release. And watch your phone. Light up within 72 hours. This isn't magic. It's electromagnetic communication between biological antennas. Share this with someone ready to transmit beyond words. How to send telepath.
I believe there's a point in time we had this master. Even Yahushua, Jesus, when he contacted Moses, I believe he was trying to get Peter to stay up with him. He was like, you guys can't stay up with me, for a few more hours. And I guess all the prophets, they passed out. And I believe he made a call to Moses. They said he went to some type of hill and his face glowed white. And he was talking to Moses somehow. That just came to my mind. I don't know why. Let me give you context for it, so you guys will be like, what are you talking about, Chuck? Not. This is definitely part of the topic. When Jesus talked to Moses, Matthew 17. Meditatius. How tight does that sound? Meditatius. It's let's see if we can get KJV. I like KJV, man. I like the thous and shall not thee. It's a little bit more poetic, if you will. Matthew 17. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, to bringeth them into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto him Moses and Elias, speaking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, is it good for us to be here? He said, you're in that same, imagine you in the same thing. Yahushua, Jesus, he right down from you. We go to this mountain and you see Moses come up. The first thing you need to do is get on that knee and just look down. You know what I'm saying? And Peter should I be here right now? That is real. I like Peter, man. I love Peter. Then Peter answered and said unto Jesus, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. So, the point I brought this up is he transfigured before him. I'm not saying we all transfiguring, but this was an example of telepathy, if you will. You know what I'm saying? On a quantum level. You know, communication. We don't need cell phones. Has there been a time you picked up your phone and before you can call the person you were about to call, they called you? I can't tell you how many times I done picked up my phone and right when I picked it up, the person I was about to call called me, or as I'm dialing the numbers, somebody would call me. You know, it's that conscience, telepathy, communication, quantum level that cannot be explained. We really don't need cell phones. I feel like if we took out all this 5G and all this radio interference that we have, Wi-Fi routers, if we took away all that and all we had was just our thoughts and conscience field, this would be a lot more possible to communicate telepathically, you know? That's just my thoughts anyway.
What I learned was pretty frightening. Every one of those animals and every one of the people who being has the genetic capacity, the capability of living healthfully to be 120 to 140, and I'm going to prove that to you in a second.
This doctor who studied human longevity seems to think that we can live a lot longer than what we've been told, and he has the proof to back it up.
Grew up on a farm, a beef farm in Missouri, about 80 miles west of St. Louis. And like everybody else that raises livestock, we raise a lot of our own feed, corn and soybeans and hay. And we grind this up into a flour, and we'd add vitamins and minerals and trace minerals to this. We'd make pellets or cake out of it and feed those calves for about 6 to 9 months before we'd ship them off. And the thing that fascinated me as a teenager was the fact that we ate out of those very same fields. We had a garden at the end of the field where we grew peas and beans and squash and peppers and whatnot. We wanted to live to be 100 with no aches and pains, and we didn't do the same thing for ourselves that we did for those calves. And as a teenager, this was very fascinating for me. And I always used to ask my dad, I'd say, hey, Pops, how come we go to all that trouble for those calves? We grind up their feed, add vitamins and minerals and trace minerals, and feed them for 6 to 9 months, knock them in the head and eat them. And we, out of those very same fields, don't do that for ourselves. Of course, being a Missouri farmer, he'd give me a lot of Missouri farm wisdom. He'd say things like, shut up, boy. Don't ask complicated questions. So I was glad when I got rid of that farm exercise and went to the University of Missouri and got into ag school. My major was in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor was in field crops and soils. As a veterinary student, what I learned was the reason we put vitamins and minerals and trace minerals into animal feeds is because we don't have insurance for them. We don't have Blue Cross, Blue Shield, major medical hospitalization. We don't have Medicare, Medicaid, or a Hillary to watch out for them. And as a result, if we were to use a human healthcare type of system for livestock, it'd be a real sticker shock for most people. Because of the veterinary care, the hamburger would cost $275 a pound, and boneless, skinless chicken breasts would be $450 a pound. The National Institutes of Health had given him $7.5 million to study pollution in the mid-'60s. This is when we first recognized that there was pollution in our air and our water and our food, and nobody quite knew what that meant over a long period of time. I had to do autopsies of animals that died of natural causes in the big zoos around the United States. And I was to look for a species of animals that was ultra-sensitive to pollution. And we were going to use that species of animals much like the old coal miners used to use a canary. You know, they take the canary down the mine, and the canary would act as an early warning system if methane gas or carbon monoxide would leak out into the mine. We're going to take these animals and put them in little strategic spots all around the world and pay attention to them. And if they started dying, we knew we were in danger. Well, to make a long story short, after some 12 years working at the St. Louis Zoo and the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, the Bronx Zoo in New York, the National Zoo in D.C., the L.A. Zoo, and many other big ones throughout the United States, I'd done some 17,500 autopsies in over 454 species of animals, plus 3,000 human beings who lived in close proximity to the zoos for a comparison. And what I learned was pretty frightening. Every one of those animals and every one of the people who died of natural causes died of a nutritional deficiency disease. And I couldn't get anybody excited about those findings because we had just put men on the moon. We had a high-tech Cold War going on with the Soviets. And so talking about nutritional deficiency diseases 35 years ago in America was pretty low on everybody's totem pole. But I knew it was important, so I got frustrated enough. I went back to school for 4 years up in Portland, Oregon, became a physician, and I practiced for 12 years in a general family practice. A human being has the genetic capacity, the capability of living healthfully to be 120 to 140, and I'm going to prove that to you in a second. When the World Health Organization kind of looked at the top 32 industrialized nations on Earth and said, how long do these people live? Who lives the longest? We ranked 17th in longevity. There's actually 16 other countries whose peoples who live longer than we did. These are industrialized nations now. Then we ranked 19th in healthfulness. It means there was 18 other countries whose peoples live longer than we do before they develop diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, osteoporosis, and so forth. We ranked 23rd in live births and first year survivability of our... Now, just very briefly, these cultures include the mountain tribes of Tibetans, and these people were made famous in 1933 at the death of a fellow by the name of Wu Li. And he was born in 1677. And if you're quick with numbers, you'll notice that he died at age 256. And when he was 106, the Chinese imperial government began publishing his birth dates and birthday parties every year for 150 years. And when he died, his obituary was in every newspaper in the world because he'd been tracked for many, many years and everybody knew him. And a year after he died, a Pulitzer Prize-winning book was published for which his life was the inspiration for this book. It was called Lost Horizon. And many of you will recall that story in that book. It talked about the Valley of Shangri-La, where people could live to be over 200. Eastern Pakistan, the Hunzas are legendary for living healthily to be over 120. And then during the 1970s, Dannon yogurt made the Russian Georgians famous. Some of you remember that ad. Prior to this ad, nobody could spell yogurt in America. And afterwards, of course, everybody wanted it. This was where a 140-year-old guy from Russian Georgia wore all his medals, held up a big saber in one hand and had a cup of Dannon yogurt in the other hand, smiled a lot and waved it around. You're supposed to believe that it was the Dannon yogurt that made him live to be 140. It was a very impressive ad because he had his son standing next to him who was 120, and his grandson who was 100, and his great-grandson who was 80, and so forth. So it was a very believable ad. Then after the breakup of the Soviet Union a few years ago, we began learning about other cultures in that same mountain range, the Caucasus Mountains, the Azerbaijanis, Abkhazians, Turkestanis, and the Russians studied all of these people for some 70 years and literally wrote thousands of scientific papers on their physical exams and their diets and blood tests and hair analysis, trying to figure out what it was that made these people special, because they were different races, different religions, but they had the common denominator of health and longevity.
You know, in America, they make it seem like you're lucky if you hit 85, 90, you know, but all these other regions probably drinking that fresh spring water. They have no type of frequencies hitting their food. It's all natural and organic. I could see it, man. Our dragon's 100% real. Living in New York. Let's see what's going on here.
This is called a Draco Rexus. You look in the Children's Museum today. In the Children's Museum, they have a Draco Rexus. But they take the wings off, so you think it's just a dinosaur. But you put the wings back on these dinosaurs like the T-Rex, and you have these Draco Rexuses. These are species of great dragon. Before leaving on our expedition to see the Acadian green dragon in the wild, Conseil and I made a stop to see the country's most famous dragon in captivity, Phineas, Fort Tryon Park Zoo. Fort Tryon Park Zoo. So there's a place called Fort Tryon Park Zoo in Upper Manhattan is home to Phineas, a 140-year-old Acadian green dragon. This is called a Draco Rexus. You look in the Children's Museum, talking about dragons. Let's go. 1857, Barnum acquired 4 Acadian green dragon hatchlings, which he placed in his American Museum in New York. When the museum burned down in 1865, 2 of the small dragons were 2 whales burned alive. The remaining dragons were taken on tour with Barnum for over a decade on P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum in Menagerie. So his freak show, his Grand Traveling Freak Show, they took the other 2 dragons. In 1888, Barnum donated 1 of the dragons to the London Zoo. Is it play? Or will you find evidence of this? We're fact-checking, right? Barnum donated 1 of the dragons to the London Zoo, but it quickly got sick in 1889. The last dragon, my naga, the last dragon was donated to the New York Zoo in 1891 upon Barnum's and named Phineas in honor of his benefactor. Talking about dragons. Let's go. 1857, Barnum acquired.
Interesting. I need more information on this dragon. Were these the last little dragon hatchlings that they had?
This is a giant doorway in Kazakhstan. At least that's what I thought when I first looked at it. But if you look at this closely, this looks like someone's hand grabbing or holding on to something. This kind of looks like a petrified dragon hand. Because when I first made this video, people were saying, oh wait, no, that's a dragon. That's a dragon. It looks like it could be a doorway, but look at the webbing. The webbing of the thumb right there. And then the index finger right here. The middle finger here. This is a hand. Dragons used to be widely accepted and known creatures, not mythical. This is a 1946 dictionary definition of dragon. It says, now rare, a huge serpent, a fabulous animal, generally a monstrous winged scaly serpent. Lizard or Saurian, a fierce or very strict person, especially a woman. That's a little crazy. But now rare, which means they used to be all over the place. Small arboreal lizards of the East Indies and Southern Asia. They're literally telling us where they were located. So Alexander the Great, his soldiers encountered a dragon in 330 BC while they were in India, okay? And they came across a hissing dragon in a cave. And it was estimated that the dragon was about 100 feet long. So dragons were all over India. Hold on. Apollonius of Tyana, a Greek philosopher, documented the dragons that he saw when he was traveling through India. Dragons of enormous size and variety infest northern India, concluded Apollonius of Tyana, who traveled through the southern foothills of the Himalayas in the 1st century. The countryside is full of them, and no mountain ridge was without one. Dragons seem to be real. The Bible mentions dragons over 30 times. Check it out, Isaiah 27:1. Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Thou breaketh the heads of the dragons in the waters. All kinds of verses on dragons, but no verses of dinosaurs. Perhaps dinosaurs are dragons. There's also a 3rd century story of this dude named St. George who slayed a dragon. But a lot of those legend stories are rooted in truth. And even the Chinese culture incorporate dragons in their calendar and in their history. Dragons seem to be all over the place. I don't think it's fake. I think dragons are real, and the mainstream doesn't want us to think that for various reasons. Who knows why? Dinosaurs are fake, but it looks like dragons are real. And if that is not a hand, I don't know what is. There's a lot of history around dragons, artwork, and it seems like the mainstream is trying to hide the fact that these mythical creatures are not actually mythical. Same thing with sirens, same thing with giants. When the government tries to say
satyrs,
something is mythical, that means it's real. What do you guys think? You think I'm tripping? Or do you also think dragons are legit? This is a giant.
I believe in the Bible they also talk about satyrs. My personal theory on dragons, once those radio stations and 5G, 6G, 4G started popping off, the dragons couldn't handle that frequency, so they migrated like birds. You know, we see birds that migrate from North America to South America, or they'll go from Canada through North America to South America. You know, it's a giant long migration pattern. That's why some people go bird watching. That's something I actually wanted to get into, because you could see a certain species that comes all the way from northern Canada, you know what I'm saying, and you see it in America, and we can tell that, oh, this is trying to migrate south, you know what I'm saying? So those are some cool aspects of bird watching as well. If you guys got some more cool facts on bird watching, throw it down in the comments. I love to hear it. Really quick, I just typed in bird migration patterns, and if we look, I mean, you choose, look at this one. You know, we got a northern wheater. These have to be the Latin names. But the patterns, look at how far the migration patterns go for these birds. You know, keep in mind, if you have a geocentric mind, look at how this Arctic term, like, look how it goes like against Antarctica. You know, are they traveling all along the edge here or what? You know, but the reason I'm showing you this is to think, how far-fetched would it be for dragons to do the same migration patterns? And these things are what? 1,000,000 times the size of birds. So if we take this on a major scale, you know, this is strictly for entertainment purposes, of course. Do your own research on everything. This entire video is just theories, not factual. What we were just looking at was the migration patterns of certain birds and how they, you know, they travel throughout Middle Earth. How far is it to say, how far-fetched would it to be if there were dragons? They could go to new lands. You know what I'm saying? They could just keep traveling, you know, and we got so many towers up, so many frequencies and all that going on. Who's to say that they are migrating to Terra Nova over here? You know, just a thought. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And that's something else to think about, how people speculate, where did all the Tartarians go? Or was that just a name for a group of people? They could have jumped on those airships and did the exact same thing.
This is a pretty interesting map. 1587 shows dry land outside around maybe Antarctica, and all the worlds are connected everywhere, and there's land up in the Arctic. Not only that, we found cyclops, griffins, dragons, gosh, what else? There's so many other beasts and creatures we found on this one. Like, there you go right there. I don't know if that's a giant or just somebody fighting something. I don't know. It's crazy. But if you want a link to this, hit me up in the comments. I'll send it over to you. You can check this craziness out for yourself. And this right here, look at that. Brasilia Regional. This is not Brazil. This is that Hy-Brasil or the other place, because when you go here, you'll see where Brazil is at. Brazil is way over here. Check it out. That's Brazil. This is wild. Oh, and then check this out. I'm sorry, it's upside down. I could probably flip it. Let me see. There you go. You can see it now. But there was another area here. You have some mermaids. But yeah, that one right there, we showed that last time too. That was pretty crazy.
You got this giant bird carrying a elephant. Looks like a pterodactyl.
Crazy. But yeah, it's pretty wild. It shows land all the way around, dry land. But not only that, it shows everything pretty much connected. And then check out, like, even where you'd have this little area right here where you'd have like Russia and Africa, you go down here and this is Japan. Look how big Japan is. I know I gotta flip it again. That's crazy to me. So I just found it really interesting and just thought it was cool and wanted to share this map with everybody because it was so neat, and there's so many different animals drawn on here that are different. And then all the land going around it, and then like you have some of these little passageways that are showing. It's just so neat. And there are several maps he made like this. This one's a circular one here, and it actually has even some writings inside here as well.
I wonder if we can translate this, if we can screenshot each little, cause all around the map, it has this like star-spangled banner all across the map, and each of them say something in the middle. I wonder if we can screenshot that, put it in ChatGPT, and have it translate for us. I'm gonna write that down actually, and we're gonna do that for a live, and we're gonna do that the entire time. Just translate maps, see what it says.
But there's a couple others that he had made. This map, when it's put together, I think it's like 9 foot by 9 foot. It's pretty wild.
Extremely interesting. There are thousands of maps like this that are from the 1500s, 1700s, 1200s, and they all tell a story. How amazing is that? Definitely something we're going to dive in more in the future. Somebody actually translated a section, and it says the island of Taprobana. I kind of like that. Taprobana. Interesting. Which today is called Sumatra, is said to be the largest in the world. Men are much rarer than women, and in the form and customs they resemble animals of various species. Only eagles and crocodiles are found there. There are no female beasts, and the women give birth without joining with males. Females are more numerous than males. What? Caption reads, Chinese government captured a dragon.
真的是条龙啊！把它包围了。3号就位，别再靠近，把袋子收下。打针了，小心！它动了。好大一口气，都起雾了。天哪！它真的是条龙啊！把它包围了。3号就位，别再靠近，把袋子收下。打针了，小心！它动了。好大一口气，都起雾了。
You know, I don't speak Chinese, but it sounds like they saying, "Let it go, we caught you."
打针了，小心！它动了。好大一口气，都起雾了。
That one was definitely generated, but someone commented something extremely interesting. They said a real dragon is only visible to the ones that need it.
Be crystal clear. Every single dinosaur skeleton you see in a museum is they show you are casts and models, not real bones, the original bones, the remains of a certain flying beast that's been documented all throughout history, mentioned by every single ancient culture. Yeah, dragons. The bones from previous resets and catastrophes and whatever other genetic monstrosities the civilization before us created in their eugenics labs are locked away, unavailable for independent research. Shocking, I know.
Didn't call them dinosaur, they called them dragon. The word dinosaur wasn't made up till 1841. It's a brand new word in the dictionary. I got some old dictionaries and looked for the word dinosaur. Even in 1891, the word was not in the dictionary. They called them dragons. Bible mentions dragons 34 times.
Dinosaurs were invented during the 19th century, at the same time that Darwinism was being promoted as the new account of life on Earth. The coincidence was deliberate, because the creation of enormous reptiles from imagined ages before mankind gave dramatic form to the theory of evolution. Without dinosaurs, the public would have struggled to imagine millions of years filled with anything meaningful.
Some people go as far as to say that they take actual Nephilim bones or giant bones and then they'll mix it with the alleged dinosaur bones.
This man said he knows for a fact there's a whole island of vampires in the middle of the ocean.
There's a vampire sanctuary located on an island in the middle of the ocean.
This man says he is a vampire.
These vampires are older than the so-called elders who live amongst humans. These vampires have been around for so long that they've developed abilities that your everyday vampires
possibly thousands of years.
For instance, these vampires have the ability to fly. Now, they don't fly the way a bird flies. They don't have wings. They don't fly the way a plane flies. There's no jetpack on their back. These vampires have been around for so long that they've developed the ability to levitate their own body by using their mind. They've also developed elongated fangs. These fangs are so long that they are unable to retract their fangs anymore. There's a few reasons why these vampires have decided to live on this sanctuary. One being that they are quite literally tired of the human race. They were walking around in Rome before Caesar was there. They're absolutely tired of humans. They were tired of living in a world where humans were more of a blight than a gift to the planet. Another reason why they might live in this sanctuary is because with their elongated fangs, it became harder to hide the existence of vampires. While younger vampires can walk amongst the humans, these elders could not. This sanctuary is surrounded by tall stone mountains and very large ancient trees. These trees have vines on them as small as a garden snake and as large as the torso of an elephant. These vines are riddled with thorns, thorns as small as ants and as big as a grizzly bear. Inside of these vines is a red substance. Now, this red substance can be consumed by vampires, but it's not a replacement for blood. The real purpose for this red substance within the vines is that when it's burned, it releases a gas. This gas then rises into the air and creates a mist. This mist covers the island, making it undetectable by radars or any other human instruments. You won't know about this island until it's too late. For centuries,
Apparently some
ships
humans have
and
been
boats,
there.
and more recently planes,
Amelia
go
Earhart.
missing when they travel too close to the sanctuary. Not only does this mist protect the island from radars, but it also prevents radio waves from traveling in or out.
Weird.
This is why those ships, boats, and planes could never send a distress call when they were in trouble.
This man said he knows for a fact there's a whole island.
How interesting is that? They need to make a movie out of that. That would be a great movie or a video game. Trying to infiltrate the island and free the people, you know? And how about the vampires getting tired of humans? They said, man, we tired of seeing y'all Super Bowl. Before that, they had the Rome, gladiators. We didn't like that. The boxing, you know, he said, we tired of humans, man.
There are a lot of mysterious creatures still in this generation. Well, dragons for ones are not mysterious anyway, but they are creatures that people believed have been in extinction. But this is a dragon that was caught. Real live dragon was caught. You can see the hands, the legs, the wings, and yeah. So this is real. This is a real shit. So what do you think, guys? There are a lot of mysterious creatures still in this.
You know, I think this one, it may be a possibility that this one may be real. Hear me out. It's not generated. Like, I can look at this and tell it's not generated. This, I think I may have seen this before a long time ago. But taking a second look at it and really looking at it versus all the stuff that's generated nowadays, you could even see the feather flapping in the wind on his damn skull. The question is this a Hollywood prop? Not is this generated, but is this real or is it a Hollywood prop? That's the question. Now, a Hollywood prop of this caliber would cost, like, I would say at least $10,000 to $20,000. And is someone willing to pay that type of money to lay this type of prop on the ground? Is my last part. So that's why I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it could be a possibility, guys. It could be a possibility. Somebody got one that washed up. You know, remember how we was talking about migrating earlier? It might have got tired and hit the water, you know? Napoleon's tomb was designed so you were never his equal. You're either bowing your head or looking up at him. Someone in the comments said, this is me looking down. You know, I heard a lot of different things about Napoleon. One of them recently was that he wasn't even real and that he was actually a myth. How crazy would that be? They made the whole story up. And that it was actually Apollo. It was some old school guy that was talking about it. I have to find a clip.
It's agreed upon. One of my quotes I often use here, attributed to this man Napoleon. It's one of those sets of lies agreed upon. History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. One of my quotes I often use here, attributed to this man Napoleon, who is one of those sets of lies agreed upon. And no, that's not a Masonic symbol he keeps flashing in all of his pictures. History would tell us that's just indigestion.
Suppose we use the same argument on Napoleon. If you've ever seen the statue of Napoleon in Place Vendôme, Paris, you will notice that the word there of Napoleon is written the Apollio. Now that would mean, making this Greek, that means that he is Apollo itself. So there never really has been a Napoleon. It's all due to the sun cult of Apollo. You think you studied the history of Napoleon? Ridiculous. Who was his mother? Letizia, wasn't it? Who was the mother of Napoleon? Leto. What does Leto mean? In one language and Letizia in the other, both joy. That's how we got the idea that Napoleon was born of a woman named Letizia from Apollo. You believe that Napoleon had 3 sisters? He did, according to the myth, but where did the myth start? Apollo had 3 sisters. Didn't Apollo have 2 wives? One was the earth, the other was the moon. Napoleon had 2. Where's the sun the major part of the day? How long is it in the sky? About 12 hours. How long did Napoleon reign supreme? 12 years. See, sun myth. He never existed. Furthermore, where is the sun strongest? In the north or the south? It's the south, isn't it? Gets weaker in the north, doesn't it? Where was Napoleon defeated? In Russia. See? Napoleon never existed. Sun come. Think.
History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed.
Where was Napoleon?
Who is this? He was in the waters back in 1953, I see.
Ever considered that the symbol we've come to regard as the embodiment of democracy and freedom might actually be a monument to the greatest falsification in human history? We've been lied to our entire lives about the origin of the Statue of Liberty. What if Gustave Eiffel and sculptor Bartholdi didn't create the statue from scratch, but were engaged in something entirely different? Look at the structure of the framework itself. It's not just a support. It's a complex engineering grid that suspiciously resembles technologies we only began to rediscover in the mid-20th century. The principle of a curtain wall, where the outer shell carries no load but hangs on an internal core, became standard for skyscraper construction much later. How did they figure this out back when brick and stone were still the primary building materials for tall buildings? There is a version that explains all these inconsistencies with one terrifying blow of truth. The Statue of Liberty is not a 19th century novelty. It is a refaced, restored object from a much older era. An era when working with metal and gigantic structures was commonplace, not a feat. 19th century engineers did not invent steel where it couldn't have existed. They found it. They discovered a framework that survived a catastrophe that destroyed a past civilization. And their task was not to build, but to disguise. To clad an ancient skeleton with copper sheets, give it the appearance of an ancient goddess, and pass it off as an achievement of modern industry. You might ask, why such an elaborate lie? The answer is simple and cynical. To conceal the very existence of technologies that surpassed steam engines and coal furnaces. To admit that this framework stood here long before the arrival of the first colonists would mean to nullify all official chronology. It would mean admitting that we live on the ruins of a great world that was erased. And the Statue of Liberty is not a symbol of a new light, but a tombstone of the old.
Shout out to my boy Dice God for that clip.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Hello?
What a curious little visitor. I would be nervous. You can see Dad protecting her head like, all right now, watch out. Your touchscreen wasn't made for phones. Created in the 1960s in the U.S. military and university labs for aircraft and radar control.
Not looking good for the next generation, and it's probably not their fault.
I think that you guys don't know what's going on in education right now. That's
A lot of
fine.
us
Like,
don't.
how could you know unless you were working in it? But I think you need to know. So here is exactly what it's like right now working in public education. First of all, the kids have no ability to be bored whatsoever. They live on their phones and they're just fed a constant stream of dopamine from the minute their eyes wake up in the morning until they go to sleep at night. Because they're in a constant state of dopamine withdrawal at school, they behave like addicts. They're super emotional, like the smallest thing sets them off. And when you are standing in front of them, trying to teach, they're vacant. They have no ability to tune in if your communication isn't packaged in short little clips, or if it doesn't have like bright flashing lights. It's actually the way harder part for me than just the outward behaviors, is just being up at the front, talking to a group of kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there. And they have a level of apathy that I've never seen before in my whole career. Punishments don't work because they don't care about them. They don't care about grades. They don't care about college. It's like you are interacting with them briefly in between hits of the internet, which is their real life. I've seen some TikToks recently where teachers are getting a lot of hate, like for not adapting to the kids or punishing them or whatever. And I just gotta say, like, I can tell you with absolute certainty, it is not the teacher's fault. It might be the parents' fault. It might be our capitalistic society's fault.
Stay weird.
But it is not the teacher's fault.
Not looking good for the next generation, and it's probably not their fault.
I couldn't imagine being a kid in public school nowadays, you know? You can get all the answers on ChatGPT, so it's not like you really have to work. You just put it in your own words. If you thought I wasn't going to have an excellent specimen for you today, think again. Get a load of this. The rating I'm gonna give this specimen, I would give it a 9.4. This is a black calcite with geothite and transparent calcite originating from Hubei province. Incredible. I'm still trying to think of a name, but I give this a 9.3, 9.4, and I would call this the Onyx Matrix. Yeah. It's kind of got like a shark tooth vibe, but they're kind of protruding everywhere, so I couldn't really go with that. So I'm gonna have to go with the Onyx Matrix. What would you call it? And drop your rating in the comments below.
One of the craziest things about this shelter, 150 foot on the ground, is the generators are still working. These go back to about 1910, 1915. Unbelievable. And they're still running. I mean, look at that. It's running at 40 amps. A mercury generator still running, powering this place. Only the best here. Only the best. Listen to that. You can hear the train. So the trains are actually running above us. We're below the train lines, the underground London train lines. One of the craziest things about this shelter, 150 foot on the ground, is the generators are still working. These
guys, this mercury rectifier right here, he's saying this is powering the whole building. What a mysterious object that doesn't get talked about enough. Not once in my history, science, any type of public curriculum, education, not once did they mention mercury rectifiers. Like, these can change the game if you ask me, especially if they knew how to connect these to the ether conducting rooftops. No more electric bill, ladies and gentlemen.
powering this place.
Every reset had the same agenda: erase knowledge, destroy old systems, consolidate power, and rewrite history. People think that these resets started in the 1700s. But the resets started in Rome. This is why they say every road leads to Rome. Rome didn't just conquer land, they conquered thought. They took Egypt and burned the Library of Alexandria, scattered the priesthood, and installed a new religion, not for spirituality, but for control. After Rome took over Egypt and burned the Library of Alexandria, they set their sights on the new threat, the Gnostics. These weren't pagans worshipping statues, They were mystics. They taught that God wasn't in a book, but God was within you. They believed in direct knowledge, not in blind faith. They believed that your soul came from the stars and that the material world was a trap built by false rulers to keep you asleep. So Rome called these mystics heretics, burned their books, destroyed their temples, and if you were caught teaching any of this, you were tortured and unalived. And the only reason we know about these is because somebody buried the Nag Hammadi scripts in clay jars and they weren't found again until 1945. That is how close we came to losing it all. They didn't just erase history, they erased the roadmap back to the divine. Oh, you thought the Crusades were about religion? They told you it was Christian knights versus Muslim warriors, but in reality, it was Rome versus ancient knowledge. During the Crusades, they didn't just sack cities, they looted them. Baghdad had one of the largest libraries on earth, and then, poof, gone. Constantinople was home to the preserved Greek, Persian, and Egyptian wisdom. What happened? It was looted. Jerusalem, a spiritual portal city that held ancient relics and forgotten tech. Guess where most of it ended up? In the hands of the secret societies or locked away in the Vatican vaults, where it's still hidden today. Then, centuries later, they miraculously rediscovered some of it and called it the Renaissance. This wasn't a religious war. This was a systematic memory wipe. Then, when people think of the Inquisition, they imagine witches casting curses and spells. But what's the truth? They were hunting healers, midwives, herbalists, and wisdom keepers. These were the last people carrying the pre-Christian knowledge. Knowledge passed down from Egypt, Babylon, and Atlantis, hidden in villages, forests, and bloodlines. They knew the power of plants, frequencies, and the human body. They had oral traditions, sacred songs, star maps, real science before it was outlawed. But to the church, this was dangerous, because it meant power outside of the system. So they flipped the script, called them witches, labeled them as demons, and burned them alive. This was not spiritual cleansing. This was intellectual genocide. It was never about good versus evil. It was about control versus freedom. Then we had World War I and II. They weren't just about borders and politics. They were about erasing the last traces of the old world. Before the wars, Europe, Asia, and parts of America were still filled with massive stone structures, cathedrals, star forts, domes, towers, built with a level of precision we still cannot explain. They called them Gothic or Victorian, but most people couldn't tell you who built them, when they were built, or how they were built. Then the bombs started falling, city after city. Dresden, Berlin, Warsaw, Nagasaki. These were not just strategic targets. They were full of Tartarian-style architecture, and it all got wiped out. After that, boom, the New World Order. The UN, the IMF, the WHO, the globalist banking, mass surveillance, a complete reset of identity, culture, and memory. They didn't just win the war, they rewrote the map and the timeline. This wasn't about freedom. It was the final phase of the reset. They can reset history, but they cannot stop us from remembering the truth.
For context, this video is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Do your own research on everything. These are just theories and not factual. For context.
This is in Derbyshire, England. Miles and miles of buried and uncharted tunnels. You can find the same type of tunnel system the world over. I believe many of these hillsides and cliffsides are nothing more than buried and melted structures that go much deeper than anyone can imagine. The mainstream refuses to touch on sites like this, refuse to dig deeper, because they know with too much public scrutiny, too much eyes on sites like this, the whole narrative of their history falls apart. We still have so much left to uncover. What's really buried beneath the hills in your cities? Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Alright guys, we got another map. I love doing these maps with you guys because they tell so much. Like for instance, this one's saying 13 months, 28 days. There might be some truth to this.
Here's an ancient map that shows 13 moons and 28 days, 1457. Oh yeah, it also shows griffins and dragons and all kinds of craziness and every biblical city name you can imagine. I find old maps and I dive into them and I do research, and this is really interesting. So been doing a lot with calendars lately, and if you'll check right up here on this map, there's 13. So we'll go ahead and count it real quick. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 for the 13 moons. Makes complete sense to me. And then you go on this side over here, and we have 28. Not going to count that and bore you, but 28's right there. You can pause and count it if you'd like, which leads up to 364. Add 1 for 365 for a complete year. And not only that, we can also show you this place has, there's Magog right here. And then you got Gog right there and the little people hanging out, comparative to the storks. So I don't know if storks were giant or the people were smaller, but there's a crazy picture. There's stories about that. I didn't know it was
Gog and Magog? Hold the phone. And if you guys remember, people were saying that the oil ran like rivers from Gog and Magog. If you guys remember a couple episodes ago when we dove into the North Pole.
I didn't know it was Gog though. And then here's your griffin right here. Yeah. Never saw a griffin looking like that. Pretty wild looking. First time I've seen a griffin that way. Comment, let me know what you think of that. Also, hit me in the comments if you want a link to this map. I'll
Look, is this a raven face?
shoot it over to you. And then let me show you the dragon real quick. There's so much craziness on this map. It's just wild. There's so much on here. Check this out. Let's flip it over. And I leave you with this. Here's our dragon. So those two creatures were there, and everything else was like a elephant here, camel, giraffe, but you just have a dragon hanging out there. So were dragons real or mythical? You tell me. I think they were real. I think griffins were real too. But things have changed now, so love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments.
The griffins might have migrated just like dragons. You guys know about my dragon migration patterns when 5G started popping off. How far-fetched is it to think that if griffins could fly, that they could have migrated as well beyond the ice wall? That's all we got for today's video. If you made it this far, be sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your way out and drop the code word in the comments. The code word for today is real dragons. Go ahead and drop real dragons in the comments below. When you do that, that shows me you made it to the end. You really rock with your boy, and I just want to say thank you for your support and hanging out with me. I love you guys. Huge shout out to everyone that made it to my gaming channel. I'm starting to post more regular over there, and I just want to say thanks again for that. And yeah, see you later. This is the most mysterious TikToks on the internet today. See you later.